Hey, and welcome to the 90.5 KCSU pregame show brought to you by Order Up. We are here live in the tailgating scene here at the Laurie Student Center here in the Odell Beer Garden. Brian, this scene is electric for the first game. How are you feeling right now?
I'm excited. We've never had anything like this at CSU. Not only have I been a student here for 3 years, but I've been coming to games since I was 14 or 15 years old. My dad's an alumni, and nothing at Hughes has ever been like this. Behind us, we have a full stadium set up for a band to play. They were doing sound checks a few minutes ago. We've got a whole bunch of people checking things out. We got here at 8:30, 8 o'clock, and there were people walking around already set up tailgating. That's early. Not only is this the first game at the new stadium, it's the first game of the college football season. It's very exciting, something I'm very interested in. And I think the biggest piece of this whole situation is we have a chance to beat a Pac-12 opponent, which is a really, really cool opportunity for CSU football. All the right things are happening on the same day for us.
Absolutely. Great scene, a great turnout, already sold-out game. We've got all the basics for you coming up here on our first segment, including weather and history. Brian, what's the weather looking like today?
It's perfect, Nick. We're starting off at 87 degrees at kickoff, about 8 miles an hour on the wind. Humidity is not going to be anything substantial. We might have a few clouds here and there throughout the day. It might get up to 90 degrees, which is a little hot. Side note, I think that bears well for CSU when you look at depth of the two teams. But 90 degrees, probably the top temperature, maybe 91, 92. And the wind will only get up to about 10 miles an hour, so don't look it to affect the kicking game, the passing game, anything like that. It's going to be perfect conditions for a football today.
Absolutely. In the past, the matchups, it's been a while since they've matched up.
Yeah, 1975 was the last game. 1962 is the only other game. They played two games. Series is tied 1-1. Mayor Troxel, who we had on our show, Ram Talk on 102.9 Rock, was talking about the game in 1975. Right. He played in that game. He said it was an awesome game. They played that at Oregon State. CSU got a win that year. And then in 1962, Oregon State got the W. Of course, nothing that happened in those two games is relevant whatsoever for this football game.
Absolutely.
No coaches, no players, nothing is the same. So it'll be cool. Something that is interesting.
Right.
In 2014, when Jim McElwain left CSU, the interim head coach is now the tight ends coach at Oregon State.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah.
So a bit of history between the two teams here in the recent era.
Maybe not matchup time, but there is connections across the board.
Absolutely. Looking at the weather here in the game, it is hot. Like you said, CSU has more depth. How's that going to bode into it, Brian?
Well, on the defensive side of the ball, Oregon State does not have the depth that you would expect out of a Power 5 school. Their D-line doesn't have a lot of depth.
Right.
Their linebackers are deep in terms of talent, but not a lot of them are proven on the field. We talked to Oregon State's Rivals senior writer, Brandon Slaughter. He writes for BeaversEdge.com, and he said there's not a lot of proven guys past the first 8 or 10 people on the defensive side of the ball, which means there's always going to be a young guy on the field for Oregon State.
Right.
And when it's hot like this, people are going to get tired quicker. When you're talking about third quarter, fourth quarter, people are tired, and you're going to get a lot of tired guys on the field or young guys on the field. And CSU, with their offensive style of play, is definitely going to jump on that.
Right, especially compared to the extreme experience on the CSU defensive side. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll have the full breakdown on Oregon State here on 90.5 KCSU Fort Collins. Hello and welcome back to 90.5 KCSU Fort Collins' pregame show brought to you by Order Up. I'm joined here by Dr. Tony Frank, the president of Colorado State. This is an electric scene for a tailgate, especially so far before kickoff. Were you expecting a reaction from the community like this?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it would be a fantastic opportunity. It's a great time to show off the campus and everything, and with it having been, the stadium having been off campus for almost half a century, there's a lot of built-up energy around this. But today, with the combination of the weather and the first kick of the football season and the whole set of things, it really is an amazing environment. It's great to be a part of it.
Oh, absolutely. The whole scene, there's so many people. What do you think that's going to do in the game? How's that going to translate over to a scene we've never seen before at a CSU football game?
Yeah, well, I think, the team was talking about that the other day. There's going to be a lot of energy in that stadium, and I know they expect to kind of feed off of that and have a good start with it. But what happens before the game to me is just as important. I mean, this is a fantastic university, and we've put $1.5 billion into this campus, and to get people here to see that and then to say, wow, what's the other great stuff that's going on at this place, and look a little deeper and find out more about CSU. That's the real benefit of having the stadium on campus and having this just fantastic atmosphere that's so fun for everybody.
Absolutely. Like you said, a fantastic atmosphere. What's that going to do, bringing the stadium on campus? How's that going to change the community here at CSU? How's it going to change the general feel of campus?
Yeah, I mean, we'll see how that plays out over time. But, the majority of college campuses have an on-campus stadium. It becomes a huge part of tradition. Alums will, set their schedules around coming back, whether it's for one game or for all 6. We were just talking to some alums who bought a second place in Fort Collins, so they could be here those six days of the year. Traditions will get started on campus. We'll see how it plays out, but I would be really stunned if this didn't become a huge part of what it means to be at CSU and in Fort Collins.
Oh, absolutely. The first game of many here in a long season. Do you think this this turnout is going to continue throughout the whole season, or is it just a first game thing?
No, I think, the team's good this year. The stadium's new. I think we'll have a great turnout. And I think that I think the financial model of attracting people to this stadium, obviously I'm placing a bet that's going to go on for 40 years. We made the commitment that we were going to do this project without tuition or student fees or public funds of any type. And for that to work, the financial model has to perform at a certain level. We've got reserves underneath it, philanthropic reserves of about $60 million that underpin that model. But every year the model does well, the extra money goes down into the reserve bucket and sits as a rainy day fund for bad years. Overall, net on net, I think we can expect for quite some time to see a lot of attraction because the stadium's new. After that, it's sports. It'll depend on how the team performs. But if we can get good traditions established, there are plenty of schools that have great attendance with football programs that go up and down because it's become a part of the culture and the fabric of the institution. That's what we're hoping for here.
Yeah, definitely. Brian Buck has a few questions for you, and then we'll get you out of here.
Morning, Brian.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to meet you, Mr. Frank. So my one big question has got to be for the football game itself. Without the stadium in consideration or the new tailgate, anything, what are you most excited for? What about the game you're looking forward to?
Well, this is Mike Bobo's third season, and he's had some great recruiting classes. He had a good foundation that Jim McElwain left to build off of. Mike's had continuity in his staff. He's got a great group of young men playing out there. It's a challenging game, against a Pac-12 opponent. And when that foot hits the leather at 12:30, I'm just interested in seeing how the team comes out and performs. I love watching college football, and I think it's going to be a really exciting game.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. It was a pleasure to meet you, sir. It was a pleasure to have you on.
Thank you all. Have a great day. Go Rams.
Yeah, of course. We're going to take a quick break here on 90.5 KCSU Fort Collins.
Hello and welcome back to the pregame show here, brought to you by Order Up on 90.5 KCSU Fort Collins. I'm Nick Baker here with Brian Buck. We were just joined with Tony Frank. Had a lot of great things to say about the game, but the game is not going to go well unless we can take care of the opponent. The opponent is Oregon State. They have a great offense, great defense, but there's some holes both sides. Let's start with the offense. Brian, what are you seeing on the offense?
Well, first and foremost, you talk about the quarterback and who he is and what he does with every football team. Jake Luton is the starting quarterback at Oregon State. He is a transfer from Idaho, played community college football last year. So the guy hasn't taken an FBS snap in almost 2 full years. He had an injury that limited him at Idaho 2 years ago, and so he only played the first half of the season. He only has 71 passes at the FBS level. With the kind of football that Oregon State likes to play with how they run their offense, they're going to be a lot of play-action style running. They're going to run the ball about 70% of the time. They're going to pass the ball about 30% of the time. We're not talking an Air Force offense where they're, running a triple option. We're talking nose to the ground, running backs running straight downfield as much as they can, and Luton taking a big shot deep every once in a while. And how I think that bodes well for us and how it looks for CSU is you've got a guy with not a lot of experience, who really hasn't played true competition in a long time, because JUCO football is not the same as D1 football. And he's going up in an atmosphere like this with a lot of fans, with a really quick and potent D-line and linebacker group from CSU. And you have to imagine that it could be really easy for him to get into a rut and struggle early.
Right. Other experience issues, the center, a converted D tackle, has never taken a snap.
Yeah. That combination there could lead to a lot of good things for CSU.
Right.
If we can jump on that quick, that'll be great for us. At the skill positions, though, this is where Oregon State thrives.
Right.
We're flipping the script. We're going from not a lot of experience and a lot of questions about how well they play to a ton of experience and complete confidence in how these guys are playing.
Right.
Especially the running back group.
Right.
Ryan Nall, their number one guy, ran for over 1,200 yards last year and 13 touchdowns. He's an excellent weapon for them. He's going to run the ball a lot. Brendan Slaughter, the guy we talked to for Rivals.com, the OSU reporter, he said Ryan Nall could probably start on any one of the Pac-12 schools at the running back position, be the starter. He's an excellent guy. And their backups, two of them, are both really solid as well.
Right.
Thomas Tyner was a transfer out of the University of Oregon.
Due to injury,
Yeah.
a top recruit.
Yeah,
he never came back.
He was a 5-star recruit. He
Right.
medically retired for 2 seasons, comes back to Oregon State, and he looked great in spring and fall practice. We're still unsure of how he's going to play. You know, you never know how a medical injury like that that forces you into retirement is going to affect your mental makeup, how you play the game, your vision, stuff like that. But he is definitely a talent, and he has a lot of potential to be a huge impact player. And just like CSU, they're deep at running back. They go all the way 3 deep. Artavis Pierce, as a true freshman, backup running back last year, ran for 500 yards. So he's an impact player as well. With that 70% run offense, expect them to get a lot of yards on the ground. And if CSU's front 7 can't take care of them over the course of the day, it's going to be a long day for us on defense.
Absolutely. An offensive line with mixed experience. How's our defensive line going to get into that, Brian? How are we going to take care of the running backs with the experience on the O-line?
That's a great question. I have to imagine that the D-line being slimmer, quicker, a little more mobile, a little bit more linebacker-oriented, is going to have to move around a lot and try and force mistakes, force guys to move in ways they don't want to. Once we find a hole, start executing on that hole.
Absolutely. Dr. Mayer Troxel came onto our show. He told us that with that quicker D-line, there's a lot of things they're going to have to do right for it to be effective. They're going to have to get through the line and execute quickly because they're not just plugs. They actually have to get through. So we'll see if that's something they can do, if they can chase down these running backs.
Mm-hmm. Last thing about the OSU offense, their wide receiver group. It's a strong group, but a silver lining for CSU. Their number one wide receiver, Seth Collins, who's a converted quarterback to wide receiver, is out today with a hamstring injury. It's been a nagging one throughout fall camp, and it looks like he won't play today. That's a good thing for CSU, considering our defensive backs is a weak point. On the flip side, though, they still have 2 other guys that are seniors with a lot of experience. And the X factor, I think, Isaiah Hodgins, a 4-star recruit out of California at the wide receiver position. Super, super quick guy. Looks like he plays a lot of slot-style receiver. He could be a huge impact player if they start feeding him the ball a lot. But again, just like the quarterback, just like the center, he's a freshman. He's unproven. Right. We don't know what we're going to see from him yet. He might not play that well at the D1 level. At the same time, he might have that chip on his shoulder. Man, I should have been a 5-star recruit. Right. And he might go out there and put up 100 yards and a touchdown. So we got to have our eye out for Isaiah Hodgins there.
Absolutely. When we talked to Brendan Slaughter, he said their defensive line and linebackers has a lot of talent, but they're not very deep.
Yeah.
There's a lot of holes and not a ton of experience on either side. How do you think that's going to play into the game, Brian?
Well, I like it. Like we talked about earlier with the weather, it's a warm day, no clouds, no rain, no wind. It's going to be hot down there.
Absolutely.
And your defensive line and linebackers rotate a lot, especially at the college level. So if CSU can wear those guys down, if we can trust in our offensive line to be sturdy for the first half and get those guys tired, get those guys beat up mentally and physically, it's going to be a really easy day for CSU to continue to roll on the offense because these guys aren't deep, and if things go wrong, they're going to stay going wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to see how quickly the CSU will be able to capitalize on that. If they do it early in the game, this game will definitely be theirs. But if they don't, they let them get their feet underneath them, it'll definitely be quite a matchup.
Yeah, of course. The defensive backs for Oregon State, not a ton to look at, not a ton not to look at. They lost a lot of guys to the NFL last year. So, again, a little bit of inexperience, but there is talent there. So we'll have to see with defensive backs. That's another big question.
Absolutely.
The big highlight, though, that I have about this defense, Gary Anderson, who's in his third year at head coach for Oregon State, has been last in the Pac-12 in sacks for both seasons that he's been a head coach. That's promising for CSU because one of our biggest questions is offensive line and keeping the quarterback and running back upright. And so it looks great for us to keep those guys upright, to let our new offensive line, some new pieces really work their way in, get comfortable without too much pressure. You know, next week when we play CU, they have a great defensive line, and that's going to be tough. And so to get our feet wet with a D-line that might not be as aggressive is awesome for CSU.
Oh, absolutely. All in all, Oregon State, a general statement, is a lot of talent but underexperienced, something that bodes well for CSU going up against a Pac-12 opponent.
Especially considering a home game, all the energy here. You know, if we start with momentum and continue momentum, this Oregon State team looks like it could be hard for them to pull that back and bring the reins in.
Absolutely. We'll be right back here after a short break with a full breakdown on Colorado State here on the pregame show brought to you by Order Up on 90.5 KCSU Fort Collins. Keep it. Welcome back to 90.5 KCSU Fort Collins pregame show brought to you by Order Up. Nick Baker and Brian Buck here. We just talked about Oregon State, an underexperienced team that has a lot of talent. We'll see if they're able to use it. What they're going up against, CSU, the home team. Brian, a lot of things to like, a lot of things that are questionable here. Let's start with the offensive line, the biggest question mark we have. The starting lineups announced Trey Moxley out with an injury. What's that lineup looking like, Brian?
You know, I'm not sure. It's really confusing to me. For the longest time, we kind of had it set Jake Bennett, Zach Goldish, Trey Moxley. We're going to be Bennett at center, the other two at tackles, and we could rest on those three pillars.
Right.
And we had who knows what yet at the guard positions, but with two strong tackles and a strong center, you can have confidence there that's going to be solid. But I'm worried. We talked about how Oregon State has a shallow D-line and some inexperienced linebackers, and so I'm hoping that helps in our favor. But honestly, in this football game, I would love to see a good performance by an offensive line, nothing that blows my mind. And I don't have to see anything great. I just want to walk away feeling confident that we have our starting lineup.
Right.
That we're where we are, because more than anything, the offensive line gets better with experience,
right,
with game numbers. That's why all the numbers you hear about offensive linemen, it's not, oh, how many plays, how many times have they blocked a guy, how many times have they knocked a guy down. It's how many starts do they have.
Right.
How many games have they played in? That's the biggest piece. That's the most important piece. And I think we need to see guys get starting and get consistency. And if, you know, our five guys maybe don't look amazing, but they look solid, I'll be happy there. And like we said with Oregon State, their defensive line not super deep. So I have confidence that we don't need an A-plus offensive line performance today to do an amazing job.
Right. Somewhere we do have depth is running back.
Yes.
Coming back, Dalen Dawkins, Isaiah Matthews, emerging Rashad Body.
Of course.
Several other behind them just in case. What are you thinking running back-wise? How's that going to play into our advantage that we have three running backs we're more than confident to give the entire game's carries to?
It means a ton. When you're playing a home game, especially with a crowd like this, the first game, a lot of energy. It's so easy to keep momentum when you're running the ball efficiently.
Absolutely.
Passing the ball, it's so easy to go first down incompletion, second down incompletion, not by bad plays, not by bad passes, but just little things here and there that you miss.
Right.
And you can lose the momentum quickly. And since we are a run-focused team, we're a team that runs the ball effectively, we can keep momentum. If we get up 14-0 in the first quarter, I have all the confidence in the world that it's going to stay that way and it's not going to be a close game.
Absolutely.
Because we're going to just run the clock out, run it until everybody's dead, until Oregon State is just done on defense. They're going to be tired. They're going to be worn out. What we have is a lot of promise with momentum. On the flip side, though, we need to start with momentum.
Absolutely.
And we can do that with the quarterback position. Nick Stevens, and I know there's been a lot of question marks. Colin Hill has looked amazing in fall practice. He's 100% back from his ACL injury. Mike Bobo said that he's 100% doing everything.
Right.
But Nick Stevens is the general. He's the guy with the confidence. He's got everything. And to switch it all up now,
He didn't deserve that.
exactly. Nick
Something
Stevens
we talked
deserves
about
his
on
position.
Ram Talk. He earned that starting spot.
Exactly.
There's no reason he wouldn't have it. Brian, what are the odds that Colin Hill makes an appearance today?
I think very low. Oregon State's a good football team. We're not going to run up the score and make it that situation. And I don't think that Bobo's going to pull the plug on Nick Stevens unless something terrible happens.
Right.
3 interceptions, a pick 6, something like that. The game's got to be abysmal for something like that to happen. So I want to say less than 5% that we see Colin Hill play today.
Absolutely. I completely agree with that. The last position on offense we haven't talked about, receiver. 2 big cornerstones there, BC Johnson and Michael Gallup on the corners. A bit of a question after that. It's not a question of how good, it's just who.
Exactly. And I think that's amazing.
Right.
We've got 2 guys out there that we know we can get production from, that we know are talented. And the last one is really just a competition spot.
Absolutely.
We've got probably 4 or 5 guys out there that have the potential and the talent to get that 3rd spot and to have a lot of impact. The question is who steps up and has the better game. We know Mike Bobo preaches, if you play well in practice, you're going to get time in games. And that means that 3rd spot is open for business, and it's a fight to get it. It's not like the quarterback position, where quarterback competition creates a lot of weird emotions and confidence issues. This is just about confidence and ego. These wide receivers are going out there, they're saying, I deserve this spot, I'm going to get it, and they're going to work their butts off, they're going to play hard, and they're going to do a lot of things right to get that spot. So I have all the confidence in the world that we're going to get a ton of production and a ton of great looks out of our wide receivers.
Absolutely, it's a fight for reps. We'll see who got the reps today. On the defensive side, like we already hinted at, a very undersized defensive line, but on purpose. They're smaller, quicker guys. How's that going to bode well against Oregon State, Brian? Personally, I'm excited to see if they can get around the lesser experienced linemen for Oregon State, including the center.
Yeah.
Someone who's not used to blocking smaller guys.
Of course. Well, I think one guy on the CSU D-line kind of epitomizes what we're looking for, and that's nose tackle Darnell Thompson. He's put off about 30 pounds this offseason. He's down below 280. He's moving a lot quicker, looking a lot better. And I think that kind of experience at the nose tackle position, he is a senior, and that kind of different style of play is going to be so tough for an inexperienced O-line like Oregon State, especially that single matchup of Darnell Thompson versus Oregon State center Hunter Johnson is going to be excellent because he's going to be able to move around, do a lot of things, give Johnson a lot of looks that he's uncomfortable with. And that's only promising. Worst case scenario for CSU, we don't show a lot of adaptation with that speed. And we look a little slow on the D-line, and we get run on a little bit.
Right.
But this O-line for Oregon State isn't really something where you look at it and say, they could make us sore at the end of the day. They're going to make it a hard day. They're going to make it tough. And so you have a lot of opportunities and a lot of chances for a quick O-line to do a lot of things. When you have opportunities and speed, good things are going to happen.
Absolutely. A position that we're most confident with, especially you and me personally, the linebacking core here at CSU. Unbelievable. A lot of plays made, led by Colorito. Evan Colorito, someone me and Brian are both very high on, we think is going to be the most impressive player for CSU defensively this year. The linebacking core, what do they just keep on keeping on?
Well, first we got to mention that one of the guys that was supposed to start, Deontay Clyburn, who was out last season with blood clots. Those just recently popped up about a week and a half ago. And before we talk about football, we wish the best for him.
Oh, absolutely.
We hope him a speedy recovery. He experienced blood clots in his calf about a week and a half ago in practice. And it's unfortunate to hear about that, especially a young guy. You don't want to hear about health problems like that.
Absolutely.
So we
very
wish him a
talented,
speedy
very
recovery.
great guy, great player.
Yeah,
Wish
of
him the
course.
best.
When we bring it back to football, that's not a brutal loss.
No.
Keel Robinson, Josh Watson, they're ready to take over.
Absolutely.
We've got a lot of guys who are making impact young. Christian Colon, who was kind of like Colorado, that hybrid linebacker, DN kind of guy. He's already made an impact in practice.
Absolutely.
He could get a lot of time today as a true freshman. And so, if anything, this position is deep and talented, and I don't have any questions about what the linebacking crew is going to be able to produce.
Absolutely. This is a period, not a question mark.
Exactly.
On defense. Going to the defensive backs, that's the question mark.
It is.
That is the area that if CSU's defense is ineffective, that's where it will come from.
Yeah.
Of course, lots of drama in the offseason with the safeties, new starters coming out. Who's going to make a difference in the secondary, Brian?
Well, you got to look at who has experience.
Right.
And there's 3 guys that have experience and that you can have confidence in. Jake Schlager's number 1.
Obviously.
Buttloads of tackles last year. He gets it done tackling the football at strong safety position. He wraps up well. He makes things happen. At the free safety position, you got this kind of question mark, but not a true question mark, and that's going to be Justin Sweet. He plays nickel corner. He plays a lot of different stuff. And in the secondary, he can do a lot of things. I think free safety is a place where he can find a quality home this year. And last but not least, is the only cornerback with true experience for CSU, Kevin Nutt Jr.,
right,
who you don't expect amazing things from, but you hope is solid.
Right.
And if we can have a solid cornerback group when we look at the rest of the defense, that front 7, I think that's all we need is a solid grouping of cornerbacks.
Absolutely. Christian Cumber, lots of other true freshmen have a chance to play tonight.
Yep.
Lots of just assorted experience. We'll see how that meshes for CSU. Overall, what's your biggest confidence and what's your biggest concern for CSU?
Confidence has got to be the consistency of the offense. We're going to put up yards. I would expect to put up 500 yards today. Oregon State last year averaged allowing over 420. We got the band behind us right now at the Laurie Student Center. You can probably hear them. We're going to try to keep talking about CSU football, but they are quite loud. So I got to have confidence in the offense and just their ability to put up points and put up yards. They did a lot last year in Oregon State with questions on the defensive side of the ball. It's definitely going to be a squad that allows us to do that efficiently. My biggest question has got to be turnovers. CSU has been one of the worst schools in the country in turnover rate for the last 5 years. At the end of last season, we saw that change. We went 6 consecutive games without losing the turnover battle, and we won almost every single one of those football games. So if we can play well with turnovers, we can do a lot of good things, turning the ball over. I'd like to see some guys in the secondary. We have a couple converted receivers. Maybe those linebackers can force a few fumbles. That's all we need with a crowd like this, and this band playing really loud.
Absolutely. Based on that band, one of my biggest confidences is going to be the school spirit, actually. The turnout here at the pregame tailgate is insane. The band is sounding great. They're looking great. They have their new pit at the stadium. Really excited to see how that translates into school spirit and gets the team pumped up. On a more serious note, I'm very confident in the front 7 of the defense. Someone that I can, as a coach, I could just say I don't have to worry about them whatsoever today. I'm completely confident sending them out. My biggest concern, the offensive line. You have to have experience at that position, and they have minimal. We'll see how that translates over, and if they can get their feet underneath them early in the game.
Of course. You're listening to 90.5 KCSU Fort Collins. We've got the band behind us, the CSU band. We're at the Laurie Student Center. We're talking about Colorado State University football. And when we keep it on CSU, I think one of the things we have to pay attention to, we're going to get away from inside the hashes and over to the line, and that's Mike Bobo.
Absolutely.
He's in his 3rd season. We had no idea what to expect in his first season. We saw good things. We made a bowl game.
Yeah.
And we played well. The 2nd season started off rocky. Tough play against Colorado. Tough results against Minnesota. Tough results to start off conference play. But as the season rolled around and questions about who Mike Bobo was came up, he put those questions to bed really quick. And he showed us confidence in a football team. He brought us a recruiting class this season that I think is one of the best we've ever had at CSU. It's exceptional. 27 guys. I want to say 9 3-star recruits, some excellent in-state talent, some excellent out-of-state talent, and some guys that we can prepare for the future. And if I'm going to say anything about Mike Bobo, it's that I hope he stays around, because we lost Jim McElwain in season 3 last year, and I'm getting nervous because he's exactly where he needs to be to go 10-3, just like McElwain did in his last season, and get a really cool job somewhere else. So I hope Mike Bobo has a great season here. I hope he loves CSU. I hope we can show him with this new stadium, with this fan base, that he has a couple good reasons to stick around. He has a couple good reasons to stay with CSU and do great things here, because he's shown us that he can and that he's going to.
Absolutely. Brand new stadium for Bobo. We'll hope he sticks around. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we will have the rest of the details on this Oregon State-Colorado State matchup here on the KCSU pregame show, brought to you by Order Up. You are listening to 90.5 KCSU Fort Collins. Keep it locked. And welcome back to 90.5 KCSU Fort Collins. You're listening to the pregame show brought to you by Order Up. Brian, we just heard the band behind us. There are people just crawling all over campus at this tailgate. What's this general feel like here for the people at home?
You know, we talked to Tony Frank earlier about it. It's great. We haven't had anything like this before. Hughes was never like this.
Right.
There wasn't the atmosphere. There wasn't the campus to do it on.
Right.
It was just a big parking lot and a football stadium. There were a couple grassy fields and a hill, but that's about it. We got the band moving around. It's playing in different places. We had a Blackhawk land on the IM fields about an hour ago. You know, cool things are going on. When we talk about the game itself, the pregame, we haven't had a pregame kind of number of activities like this in a long time. We have F-16 jets flying over the stadium today, right before the game. We have the second largest American flag in the world here today. It's going to stretch from end zone to end zone in the football stadium. It's going to be held up by active and former duty military. You know, CSU veterans are going to be there holding it.
Right.
It's a fun atmosphere. And we got a former CSU alumni who's participating on America's Got Talent is going to sing the national anthem.
Beautiful.
It's cool stuff. We got a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of things to do with the Odell Beer Garden right now. That's a fun thing. We got a band playing behind us on the IM fields. And there's a lot of things to do here that are very exciting. And that's without the new stadium. We haven't mentioned a shred of what the new stadium provides for us, which is really cool.
Yeah, of course, the new $1 billion stadium, definitely.
Not quite that much.
That's just what we're calling it.
Yeah.
$1 billion stadium. Bringing a lot of cool stuff to us. Like you said, there's a lot of people here, more people than we've seen in a long time for games at Hughes, even in its final season. And like Tony Frank said, he thinks it's going to stick around, and the people are going to keep coming back.
Yeah. Well, you know, one of the things I think is important, too, is we're 2.5 hours before kickoff, and it's already like this. There's a lot of time for people to get here. It's 10 in the morning. You know, this isn't a 6 o'clock game where people come in at 1 and tailgate for a while. You know, this is a 12:30 kickoff. This is an early football game, and there are people already here kind of early in the morning. There were people here at 9 o'clock in the morning checking it out. And so that bodes well a lot. You know, imagine down the road when we got a 6 o'clock night game kickoff. That's going to be cool stuff.
Oh, absolutely. It's going to go well into the night. When we talked to Joe Parker, when we talked to Mayor Troxel, they both were excited about what it would bring to Fort Collins, just bringing people here to see this great city. And Tony Frank was excited to get people here on campus to see what's going on here on campus. Alumni are coming back as well with the new Alumni Center. Lots of reasons for alumni to come back. That's got to be a great boost for the fans here. You know, people who know the traditions, people who want to carry them on. That's going to keep the team excited and happy.
Yeah, and you know, when I talked to Brandon Slaughter of Rivals.com Beaver's Edge, he told me that even Oregon State fans are excited about this atmosphere. You know, they're excited about a new stadium. They've heard about it. They know it's a thing. We've got Oregon State fans here who made the trip all the way up from Oregon because it's a new stadium.
Right.
You know, at a stadium like Hughes, rarely did we get a recognizable away crowd.
Right.
You know, we got Wyoming and Air Force and Utah State. They would come. But not many other schools came. And so I think it's a big impact now that there's a new stadium, there's new facilities, there's cool things for not only CSU fans, but all people in college football to get behind. And that bodes well.
Absolutely. Any final thoughts? What is this going to be the difference maker for CSU? Is this what's going to put them over the edge to beat Oregon State?
You know, I don't know if this is the difference maker. I think that the team that Mike Bobo has put together is definitely capable of winning at versus Oregon State. But this gives you so much confidence. You know, I would have had so many questions about, well, they're a Pac-12 team. How good is their actual talent? We haven't played them straight up. We don't know what exactly this matchup's going to look like. But with this atmosphere, with this crowd, with the new stadium, with all the emotion that's put into everything, it gives me that much more confidence to say that CSU is going to be able to go out and do what they want to do. When you look at the team that we have, it's made perfectly for this kind of an atmosphere. When you talk about a potent quarterback who knows how to command an offense, a running game that can run the ball all day long and tire out the opposing team, and a D-line that's quick and agile and can move and could probably get a lot of sacks today, those are all the things that a loud, energetic crowd and an emotional football team are going to be great at executing and great at performing.
Absolutely. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we will wrap up our analysis on this Oregon State-Colorado State matchup here on Week 0, the first game of the college football season. All that and more coming up on the KCSU pregame show, brought to you by Order Up here on 90.5 KCSU Fort Collins. And welcome back to 90.5 KCSU Fort Collins. This is the Order Up pregame show. We're here in the Odell Beer Garden campus, LSC, all that good stuff. Brian, isn't it just great out here tonight?
Yeah, it's a fun time. I'm enjoying it. I didn't expect this.
Oh, no.
We expected all the stuff to be here, but the atmosphere, the excitement, how people are feeling, how people are moving around, it's a cool thing. You see a lot of times, especially with college venues, people just come and be there.
Right.
And they're there, and you can tell there's a crowd, but there isn't a lot. There's not a lot going on.
Right.
You know, we see it a lot at some men's basketball games here sometimes.
Absolutely.
There's a crowd, but what's the crowd doing? This crowd, you can tell there's emotion. People are excited. People are smiling. People are moving around. It's a definite atmosphere. You can feel
absolutely.
it. You know it's there. I like it a lot.
Being just here in the beer garden, we can see over 50 tents. We can see a live stage. We've got the view of the mountains completely clear. This is exactly what they envisioned when they built the stadium.
Oh, yeah, no. This is ideal right now. The stadium just over the tops of the trees off to our right. It's a beautiful place to be. This is going to be a fun atmosphere for a very long time.
Absolutely. This is a fun atmosphere, but to get a win, there's going to be some keys to victory. Brian, let's give our keys to victory. I'll have you start it off.
Yeah, of course. You know, my first key has got to be momentum, crowd level excitement, you know, that kind of just feeding off of that. I want to see CSU come out with a hot start, get a turnover in the first quarter. I want to see them execute on offense, move with momentum, try and score quickly, and get a lead quick. We don't necessarily have to start out with an amazing defense, but as long as we can come out with some energy on defense and some kind of pressure on offense to get it done quickly, some speed and some importance there, I think we're going to play well, and we'll start off hot and continue to be hot.
Absolutely. A key for me, the pressure on that new center for Oregon State has to be intense and often.
Yes.
It has to start early in the game. That will also hurt the quarterback for Oregon State. Low experience is going to be, tested quickly if there's mistakes early in the game, maybe a bad snap, something of that nature. If we get that off, the whole offense is disrupted. You can't give it to the great running back if you can't get the snap right.
Yeah. That leads you into my second key of the game, and that's going to be getting an interception. Jake Luton, the quarterback for Oregon State, and like we said, that new unexperienced center, that's not a great dynamic. They don't pass the ball a lot, so if he's having an off day, he's not going to have a lot of chances to correct himself, to grow his confidence. And so I would love to see this secondary, which is got a lot of question marks, grab a bad deep pass by Luton, make an interception, change the course of the game, because that could completely unravel Oregon State's offense. It'll make them into a one-dimensional run-only team. It'll give us all the momentum in the world. It'll give us all the confidence, and it takes one of the biggest question marks we have on the entire team, and it makes it a check.
Absolutely. A confidence booster for a very underexperienced and low-performing unit in our defensive backs. That's another key for me is experience like Justin Sweet and Jake Schlager need to lead the defensive backs in a charge. They need to be solid, and they don't need to make plays per se. They just need to get keep the ball away from the playmakers in the receiving core for Oregon State.
Yeah, I like that as well. My third key, keeping it on our offensive side, has got to be the running back core. We've got 3 of them: Dalen Dawkins, Isaiah Matthews, Rashad Body. They're all excellent. And we're deeper than that, too. We go 5 deep. And that doesn't include Marvin Kinsey, who has a torn ACL, who will be back towards the end of the season, hopefully. I would love to see all 3 of those guys put in an equal amount of work. Give them different looks. Make different things happen. Confuse the Oregon State defense, which we kind of mentioned earlier is shallow. And something that Brandon Slaughter told us, they don't have one solid defensive set. They don't play a 4-3. They don't play a 3-4 set. He told us that sometimes they play a 3-3-5, right, a 2-5-4. They do a lot of really weird, different things. And if our running back group can stay on them, give them a lot of different looks, which all 3 running backs do give them different looks, that's going to keep them confused. It's going to keep us confident. It's going to keep us moving. And when you run the ball efficiently, especially in Mike Bobo's offense, you win football games.
Absolutely.
So running the ball well, keeping the looks good. I'd like to see Body get 10 carries and both Dawkins and Matthews get 15 apiece. And last but not least, with the running backs, we had a huge problem last season. One of them was injured. One of them had a pulled hammy every week. And they were playing, but they weren't 100%.
Right, and it just alternated.
We'll see you next week. Let's be 100% with the running backs. Because we can afford a loss today. But an injured running back throughout the entire season or even for 2 weeks, that hurts. That has an impact on your whole season. So I want to see our running backs stay healthy.
Absolutely. Something that corresponds directly with yours. My key is Jake Bennett. Jake Bennett in and of himself. He's going to have to be the man on the offensive line today. He's going to have to perform for all 5. He's going to have to lead for all 5 of the offensive linemen. And I think he's going to bring his experience into the game and really help mentor the 2 young, inexperienced guards, whoever it will be starting on either side of him. I think he's going to lead that line, and if he does not lead that line, bad things are going to happen.
Yeah, definitely. Jake Bennett is a guy you have a lot of trust in to lead that line. He's a 2-year starter now. He's got a ton of experience. He projects out a guy who could have an NFL career, so I'm very excited for what this guy can do.
Absolutely.
Leading this offensive line. And, you know, realistically, while there are a lot of questions on this O-line, if there's anybody I'd want shoring up those questions, it is Jake Bennett.
Absolutely.
You know, I might take Weston Richburg, who's a Pro Bowl All-American from CSU, who plays for the New York Giants right now. But Jake Bennett's a close second.
Jake Bennett is absolutely a close second. Brian, any last words, final thoughts on this game?
You know, on the Oregon State side of the ball, my biggest question, my biggest concern, and what I think fans and us in general, people in general, need to keep an eye out on is their dynamic playmakers on offense. Because, yeah, there are questions about Luton, but he could be amazing. He could throw some excellent deep ball passes. Isaiah Hodges, the true freshman, he could have an amazing game. We haven't seen him. And we know their running back core is solid with Ryan Nall and Thomas Tyner.
Right.
So we got to pay attention to their playmakers on offense, because just like our playmakers on offense, they could make it a long day for us. We got to keep an eye on them. That's how they're going to win the football game, is making offensive plays and making us hurt in the wrong scenarios and quieting this crowd.
Absolutely. For me, it's going to have to be who makes the fewest silly errors, as it is in all close games like this. And the way we're going to do that is by keeping our heads cool, something we didn't do in the opener last season against CU. So we'll see if CSU can get that accomplished today. In the meantime, that's all we have here for you from the CSU pregame show, brought to you by Order Up.
We'll catch you guys in 2 weeks when CSU takes on Abilene Christian here at the new on-campus stadium. This has been 90.5 KCSU Fort Collins' pregame show for CSU football. You guys have a great day, and go Rams.